from West Virginia Public Broadcasting.
We're here in the governor's office at the state capitol. Governor, thank you for having us here.
Very pleased to have you, Beth.
I'm interested in what made you get involved in politics in the first place, way back in the 70s.
Yes, 70s were a crazy period of time, but I was a senior at WVU and getting ready to graduate in May of 1974, and had a degree in management, and they trained me to be chairman of General Motors. Mm-hmm. Well, I went back knowing I was going back to Chapmanville. Not a whole lot of jobs for presidents of General Motors in Chapmanville, but anyhow, not really knowing what I was going to do, whether work as something local or what. The election was coming up, lots of hype starting about it. I've been involved, my family had with local politics, and so I told my parents, I said, I've been thinking about running for the House of Delegates, and which I think took them back a little bit, and I said, what do you think? And they thought about it, and they said, well, if that's what you want to do, we'll do what we can to help you, Okay. So, they encouraged me, and I ended up filing, and before I went back to Morgantown, and ended up coming home every weekend. I kind of abbreviated my classes to Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, and was able to have an extra day or so at home to be able to campaign. So long drive from Morgantown to Chapmanville back in those days, nearly 6 hours, because the roads weren't all finished, and maybe a little bit less by then. But anyhow, was able to get through that and had the primary in May, and it was on a Tuesday, and then ended up graduating on Saturday, the same week in May. So
is that right?
It was a big week.
So how old are you how old are you?
By that time I was 21, 22, I think, yeah.
Was there something that you saw in your community as a young man growing up there that you said, I want to get involved and fix this? Was there any one thing?
Well, I think right now it's probably the road thing. At least as far as Logan and Lincoln County counties go, I think that's probably like what I'll be pushing for most, because that's what most of the people need there now. It's the road thing.
I don't think it was one thing. There were, several things I wanted to do. I mean, having been able to get away from Chapmanville a little bit and see what other communities had and so forth, my thoughts were, we could do that here. We've got the people, we've got the tax base, and we need to have someone who has a little bit of a vision that could step out there and say, let's get something, improve our park, improve our schools, and those kind of things. And that's been one of my desires, to improve education and to help those students that I represented to have the same opportunities that other students in other parts of the state and other parts of the country had.
So you're in your 20s and you enter the House of Delegates, which the demographic must have been a lot older. How were you received by the people who were already serving there?
I don't think they took me real seriously. However, there was one delegate who's still around today, played a different role as a lobbyist, as Larry Swan, who was elected 2 years prior to that. He was a student at Salem College at the time, and so our birthdays were exactly a month apart. So he got to be the youngest member for 2 years, and then I came along and bumped him down to the second oldest member. But I don't think a lot of the older members really took us serious, because I think outside of Larry and I being 22 years old, the next step up was probably to 27, 29-year-olds or something like that as far as members' ages go. But I'll never forget going in the clerk's office as the way you used to have to do it before everybody had their secretaries and everything, and your desk on the floor was your office, and asking for legal pads or pens or whatever, and they said, well, who's this for? Thinking I was a page. I said, it's for me. Well, who are you? I'm the new delegate from Logan and Lincoln counties. So it was, an experience, but it takes a little while to get used to it, to the members to get used to you. And I ended up spending 3 terms in the House of Delegates before I went to the Senate in 1980. But I guess I'd left my mark somewhere along the way.
Can I ask you about your father, if you mind?
Sure.
He was convicted of political misconduct. the first time you would have been a teenager in the 1970s. What is that like? What do you say to him? What did he say to you? And how does that affect your political career?
Yeah. You know, when you have a family member, and it happens to lots of families, mine's no different, you know, where a family member gets in some sort of trouble, you still love them. They're still who they are. You don't banish them, and you try to support them. You know, you don't have to like it, but, you know, it is what it is when you have a situation like that. And, you know, you continue to go on with your own life while, you know, trying to support that family member that's, you know, has had some misfortune.
Yeah, but then that happens again in 1992.
Yeah.
How does this affect your ethics and your work ethic and your political ethic?
You know, I mean, I have always done what I thought was right, what was right, and, you know, done everything to, you know, do what I was elected to do, and that's to serve the people. I've never been here to try to do things to, you know, help myself or other. You know, I've always tried to, you know, do the best I can to push our state forward, and I think that over the last 40 years I've shown that we've made a lot of progress in this state, but obviously there's still things to be done.
What do you think your best accomplishment is, not only as governor, but throughout your career? What do you think about, now that you're thinking back, about that was really good, that was a really good thing that happened?
You know, there's been so many in my career here. I think probably the common thread throughout my legislative and gubernatorial service has been, you know, fiscal responsibility, learning to, you know, that you can't spend more than you're taking in, and you know, you've got to live within your budget. And you know, we've had lots of problems in this state, especially, you know, by not doing what former legislators and governors should be doing. And when it comes to things like retirement, I remember, you know, we were at one point back in the late 80s when Governor Caperton come on board, down to within a few months of not being able to send any retired teacher or school service personnel's monthly retirement checks out.
I remember those days,
and
yeah.
we were about 9% funded at the time. You know, we put ourselves on a 40-year payout plan. We're 20-some years into that now. We're up nearly 68% funded, and it's been consistent throughout my career here that, you know, that you be responsible. And if you just think of what we could have been doing for the last 20, 25 years, by being able to reinvest in our teachers or our infrastructure with that $400 to $500 million that we're having to put in to make up for some of the sins of the past into our teachers' retirement system. So, you know, but at least what we've been able to do is improve our bond ratings. When we go to the market now, we've saved millions of dollars by having a good bond rating. You know, here recently, been just very pleased that we were able to create the rainy day fund, and that was, you know, during my tenure, and former finance chair and former speaker Bob Kiss, we were able to put a rainy day fund together. I think that's been very helpful in keeping our bond rating up, the highest it's been in many decades. And you know, the simple fact that we did have one of the best rainy day funds still in the country this year when the floods hit, when we have had hundreds of millions of dollars in damage, you know, and you've got, when FEMA comes in, you've got to have your part ready to spend before they'll give you their part. So, you know, when we had a devastating flood like we did this past June and July, if without the rainy day fund, we would have been in some serious financial problems in West Virginia.
I know you're very proud of your service as Senate Finance Chair for many years, and you do love talking about the budget. Does it pain you to see what's happening to the budget now, the lesser revenue, budget cuts? Is it painful to see?
Of course it is. You know, we do a 6-year forecast in West Virginia, and when I first became governor in November of 2010, the out years, 16 and 17, were supposed to be the years when things were back on the keel again, and you know, I'd hope to have some additional money for different things like this, you know, some pay increases for our teachers and our public employees out there. But obviously, with, you know, with forces beyond our control, you know, we had the the worldwide recession. We've had what's happened in the energy market, and we were able to escape the first part of it, of the Great Recession. But a couple of years ago, when the coal miners continued to get laid off, the price of coal went down. We were doing okay for the first couple of years because we were producing so much more natural gas. But then when the bottom fell out of the gas market, as a double whammy. And then that's when our budget really started doing a nosedive. And for the past 3 years, I've cut out 10% of our state budget over a 3-year period of time. That's over $400 million, and that's a lot to cut. And there are those who say, oh, there's waste and fraud and everything in government. There's not a whole lot to be cut without cutting complete programs. We've tried that. That's very tough to do when the people that use those services out there come to the legislature and cut all of it you want, cut all the waste, but don't cut my program. And that's where you run into issues. And I think that's part of what happened last year with the long extended budget session, where it was just almost impossible for the legislature to say, I'm going to cut this specific program. Everybody likes to talk about it, but let's go in and say exactly what programs we're going to cut and see if they can follow through with it.
That was a toughie for them.
It was tough for them, and obviously I realized that we needed some additional revenue. I presented several scenarios on 2 different occasions, when I was State of the State and then when I started the special session, and I said, if you don't like those scenarios, if you got another way of coming up with revenue, I'm happy to work with you to do that. And the easy way was to take it all out of rainy day, which is not a good thing to do, because had we done as I said, that money would not have been there to help the flood victims.
Your biggest disappointment? Anything throughout your career that you just, you shake your head and wish we could have done that differently?
It's not really been a disappointment, maybe the timing more than anything else. And coming from southern West Virginia and watch what's happened there in the last 4 or 5 years, I've always had this vision of being able to diversify our economy in that part of the state. And that includes Kanawha County to a certain extent and those counties south, because one of the things that we have found out from our Commerce and Development Office is we've lost a lot of potential investors coming in simply because we could not find the level ground or enough ground suitable to build the kind of factory that they wanted. We've shown them some, but it's when you get to looking at more than 50 or 100 acres with the infrastructure in place, it's hard to find, and especially in southern West Virginia. Well, finally, the old Hobet site came about, and we've rebranded it as the Rock Creek Development Project. There will be over 12,000 level acres there that can be used for industrial or commercial type development down there. And obviously, we got part of the utilities there now, but I think that's going to, I'm just sorry we can't get it complete before I leave, but we got to set in motion. It's moving along very well, to be able to offer those properties up where we can diversify our economy, get different kind of good paying jobs in the southern half of West Virginia. And that's one of my disappointments. I don't have that additional time, and it was only because of the timing of when the mining stopped, and but we've worked diligently at it for the last 2 years, and I think it's well on its way to becoming a reality.
What do you worry about? Does anything keep you up at night?
I worry about a lot of things. I worry about our country. Obviously, we've got to worry about our state, to make sure that it's in good hands and we continue to grow. We've made some major progress in this state. I think we got a bright future in West Virginia, but we got to all work together and pull together and not get divided over small things that's important to a few people. But let's look at the big picture out there and see what we can do. We've made improvements in our education system, especially our early childhood, where we got to start working with our young children to get them educated. By 3rd grade, have them reading at grade level. Our tests are showing that we're doing that now. When I came in, we had one of the highest dropout rates of high school students in the country. This year, it's up over 90%, 92, 94%, and continuing to grow. So, we are making progress. We're making sure that our students, when they do graduate from high school, are either ready to go into the workforce or can make a seamless transition into higher education. These are positive things we're doing. I think it's showing. I think we've changed our business climate. We've lowered our corporate net, got rid of our business franchise taxes, privatized workers' comp, and for 10 years in a row, taken a state with some of the highest workers' comp premiums in the country to now with some of the lowest workers' comp premiums. Those things are attractive to businesses, and that's the reason we've been able to attract the Macy's and Gestamp and Procter & Gamble. I mean, they could have gone any place in the country and were courted very heavy by other states and other governors, but we were able to attract them to West Virginia, and they're not only here and employing people, but they're prospering and growing. If you look at the numbers that they said they would have, number of people working, within a year or so, and what they've got today, each one of those have far exceeded any number that they'd ever thrown out.
To this point, during the campaign between Bill Cole and Jim Justice, they would argue in debates over which of them could walk into a big corporation's board meeting and sell West Virginia. What's the reality? Can a governor really do that?
I have been in courtrooms, and one of my sayings has been, I'll go any place and sit down with anybody to bring jobs to West Virginia. But one of the things that I have heard from several different businesses, and it makes me feel good, is the way that potential investors are treated in West Virginia. And that being that they normally start by, inquiring of our development office and what's available, where, what they're looking for, those kind of talks. As those talks then start to get a little bit more serious, and this is not something that happens in a week's time. It takes months and sometimes years for a business that's going to make a huge investment to decide where they're going to build, what's best for them. But when it gets to a certain point that they're ready to come in, they like to talk to the governor. And basically what I do is I bring in all the appropriate secretaries or department heads and put them around the table. So when they bring their leadership team, their CEO in, if they've got questions about any tax breaks, I got the Secretary of Tax and his people there. If they're worried about infrastructure or access to property, I got the Transportation Secretary sitting there. If they need permits, the DEP is sitting there. I got our community college and higher education chancellor sitting there in case they're wondering about their workforce and Workforce West Virginia. So I have them all in the room. They don't have to run to this office and that office. But any question they've got, I can answer it with those appropriate people around the table. They like that, and not having to make 50 trips in and out. They like the fact that they have the governor's cell phone number or Keith Burnett's cell phone number. And I've heard them say in public meetings, that's what attracted us, that we don't get that kind of service in all states. That we are small, we can't offer what a lot of the larger states can, but we can offer attention and we can offer results when they have questions.
So that really does happen. I thought maybe that was just a campaign pipe dream, but that really does happen.
It really does happen.
Okay.
Just to give you another example, sometimes you can't just sit here and wait for business to come through the door. You got to go out, and I think that I know that I was the 7th governor to make the trip to Japan, and I made 2 trips there during my tenure. But to be able to develop relationships, especially with Japanese companies, they got to have trust, they got to have faith in you. And it started out with Governor Rockefeller many years ago, and it's gone through every governor since. But to be able to sit down at lunch with Dr. Toyota, or he was here recently for the big announcement of another $400 million expansion here in West Virginia, the Toyota plant. He and his wife, Joanne, had Dr. and Mrs. Toyota to the mansion for dinner. And those are things that has helped us with Diamond Electric and the spark plug plants and these other Japanese companies, by having someone as respected as Dr. Toyota is, say, West Virginia is a good place. They got a good workforce, and it's good to have our investors helping us sell West Virginia.
What advice do you have for Governor-elect Jim Justice?
I liked one of the things he said that in one of the either news events or something, but he's going to take her on a rocket ride. It will be a rocket ride. It's, having this experience has been a real eye-opener for me. I think that, having all those years working with governors and, being a member of the Senate and president of the Senate, I had really a lot of insight into this office. But the day that you take that oath and you realize that you may go home at night, but you're still governor, and whatever happens 24/7 is on your shoulders, and you need to be ready and willing to be able to respond to whatever the situation may be, and lots of folks depending on you, and that's one that there's no day off, and so it takes a little getting used to. I'm sure that Mr. Justice, he's worked hard, and run lots of businesses and so forth, but this is a little bit different animal than sitting behind the CEO of a private company's business.
Have you been able to meet privately with him and talk to him?
We've had limited talks since the election.
Okay.
However, we hope to get together next week and sit down and talk a little governor to governor stuff. And I mean, his transition team is a couple of offices down here, so we brought them in. My staff is working with them, so there's a lot of things going on. They're having their transition meetings, trying to figure out who the new cabinet secretaries and so forth will be.
Right.
But it'll be a smooth transition.
All right. What is your advice to the West Virginia Legislature, particularly the new Senate President?
My advice from my experience there is, to work across the aisle. Nobody's got all the right answers, and and everybody needs to be heard. I think that that was one of those things that during my 17 years as Senate President was being able to make sure people were heard. Sometimes they knew they weren't going to get their way, but if they would just listen to me, I think they feel better. But at the same time, we were able to get a lot of things done under my tenure, and I think that's because we would reach across the line and not look at the big picture and try to set the goals on what they want the state to be like and how we're going to get there and what's best for the people, and stay away from a lot of the emotional issues, and let's look at the things that the legislature is really required to do, like passing budgets and being competitive and having a good education system and taking care of our people. And I mean, everyone has their own leadership styles, but mine has been more of trying to bring people together and let's you're never going to get 100% of what you want in the legislature, but let's get as much as we can that we can all agree on.
One thing that Governor-elect Jim Justice has said is that he's going to fix the budget by bringing in more business and not increasing taxes. Can it be done?
It could possibly be done. I mean, obviously if the price of fuel will go up or natural gas shoot through the roof tomorrow, and price of coal go up, and 1,000 coal miners will go back to work, and Santa Claus will bring all those presents, sure it could go back up. I'm not sure it can go up enough in the upcoming budget year to meet the needs. Have some real concerns about that. I think it's going to take some time, and I've been here on both ends of. I came to the Senate when we were broke, and that was the last of Governor Moore's administration, and with Governor Caperton, we had to raise about $400 million in taxes. We had some good years and bad years, but but we're back where we are now, and it's one of those things that I proposed taxes last year, and they chose not to raise them. And when I balanced the budget and sent it up to them on the first day of the legislative session, I'll have another one, and I'll probably offer my advice or my suggestions on where the additional revenues will come from, and then
And see what
I'll
happens.
say goodbye then.
And what will you do then?
I'll be active. I want to remain active and do things. Joanna and I will probably, no doubt, take some time off and travel a little bit and get away. It's been very difficult to do in the last 6 years, but spend a little personal time and just either. I'm not really sure, like to, but I will, remain active one way or another, whether it's serving on a board or whatever I may be doing.
All right. Governor Earl Ray Tomblin, thank you very much.
Thank you, Beth. It's great seeing you again.
Great seeing you, and good luck to you, all right?
Thank you.
All right.
From West Virginia Public Broadcasting.